So thank you very much, everyone, for joining this webinar, and thank you for the great introduction. Today, I will discuss how to export cosmetics, and I will address the Cambodian aspect, but we have colleagues from Laos and Myanmar joining us as well. My name is David. I'm a Dutch national, but I've worked in Cambodia for 7 years, and I'm an associate at the Cambodia office of Tidking Gibbons, handling many different legal issues, including regulatory affairs. Our company offers the full range of issues and legal services in Southeast Asia. We have a corporate commercial department, we have a dispute resolution department, and an intellectual property department. Today's topic will be about regulatory affairs, and this falls under the intellectual property department. We have offices around Southeast Asia. These are all of our locations. Today we are joined by Phnom Penh, Vientiane, and Yangon. If there's ever any issues you encounter in any of these countries, please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to help you, of course. So let's move on to today's topic, exporting cosmetics to Cambodia. This is the outline of my presentation today. I will start by setting out the process of exporting cosmetics to Cambodia, by giving 4 practical points you need to look at. Then we'll dive into a bit more detail and look at the regulatory framework. So we'll look at the laws and regulations. And then I will provide some guidance on how to meet the requirements set by those laws and regulations. So there will be pre-marketing requirements, which means before you enter the market, you need to meet these requirements. And then there's continued compliance. So a few practical considerations once you're in the market, and once you want to advertise your product that is on the market. So this is the general process. You first have to look at your product and see if it does classify as a cosmetic under Cambodian law. If that is the case, you're gonna have to look at business licensing, because only licensed companies are permitted to trade cosmetics in Cambodia. Once you've covered the business licensing, you'll move on to product notification. Product notification is basically product registration, because every product needs to be registered before you can enter the market. Then there's product labeling and advertising. These are 2 key compliance requirements you have to look at. Does your label meet the legal requirements, and do you advertise in line with the applicable laws and regulations? So these are the main 4 steps you have to look at when you think of exporting your cosmetics into Cambodia. So we'll take a look at the regulatory framework. The regulatory framework is given on this slide. It basically provides the most important laws and regulations applicable to cosmetics. As you know, Cambodia is part of the ASEAN, and the ASEAN has adopted a harmonized cosmetic regulatory scheme, and under that scheme falls the ASEAN Cosmetic Directive. Cambodia has implemented this directive, so most of the points that are mentioned in the directive are translated into Cambodian law, and the local authorities will look at the directive when registering your product. The main piece of legislation is the sub-decree on cosmetic products control. This is the overarching law that basically sets out the general requirements on how to import and trade cosmetics. Then there's PRACAs, and PRACAs are implementing regulations. So they will give you more practical guidance on the procedures and conditions for running a cosmetic business, for registering your products, and for the advertisement of the products. So these are the main laws that will give you guidance on how to meet the legal requirements. So I will take a look at the definition. The definition of cosmetics is quite straightforward. It's taken from the ASEAN Cosmetic Directive, with some slight interpretations in wording, but generally it's quite a straightforward definition. And if your product falls under this definition, it will be considered as a cosmetic, and you need to fulfill all the legal requirements to cosmetics in Cambodia. Then the business activities. In Cambodia, the business activities are regulated. So any person or legal entity that trades on the market must comply with the formalities of trade, which basically means you need to be licensed. And once you are licensed, you're allowed to do certain trading. If you do not have that license, in contrast, you're not allowed to do that trading. So in Cambodia, you have to be a licensed import company of cosmetics before you can trade. Then there's the product notification or product registration. The subdecree provides in Article 4 that even every cosmetic product imported or produced locally must have a notification number before they are allowed to trade in the Kingdom of Cambodia. This means that every product has to register before you can enter the market and before you can advertise as well, because only products that bear the notification number may be advertised. So we've seen the legal requirements, and now we need to look at how can we meet these legal requirements. We call this pre-marketing compliance requirements, because you have to meet these requirements prior to your entering the market with your cosmetic. So we're assuming everyone's product will be a cosmetic. So what is the first step we look at after that is the cosmetic business activities. The cosmetic business activities are regulated, as we discussed, and the main piece you need to get is the cosmetic import company license. Once you get this license, you're allowed to trade on the market. So without this license, you're not allowed to trade. So this is a key requirement to meet. Only a local registered entity can obtain such a license from the Ministry of Health. And there's licensing conditions. One of the main licensing conditions we always highlight is that you have to have a Ministry of Health approved stock location. So your warehouse or wherever you keep your stock has to meet certain technical requirements as part of this license. So the local companies that are here, they all operate an approved stock location day to day. And the Ministry of Health can check every once in a while to see if you still meet these requirements. So this is usually an obstacle for most foreign companies that enter the market, but it's easy to meet once you set up an entity here. When you are a licensed cosmetic import company, you may engage in the listed activities. So you can apply for cosmetic product notification, and then you may import, distribute, store, and display products that are duly registered, and you may advertise products that are duly registered. In contrast, if you don't have this license, you're not allowed to engage in these activities. So for anyone who wants to export products into Cambodia, has to take a look at this key requirement. So how can you meet this key requirement as an overseas company that wants to export into Cambodia? You may set up your own entity. So you set up your own local registered entity and obtain your business licensing, or you work with a local partner. Having your own entity gives you full control over the import and distribution chain and over the registration dossier and the formulas that are in this registration dossier. So that is for most companies that have a long-term view of entering the Cambodia market would set up their own entity. However, other may decide to work with a local partner. The advantages are that this local partner is usually experienced as a cosmetic importer and distributor. Then they already possess the required company licensing. So this means that your access to the market will be a bit faster, but you have to give away some control. For those that do want to set up their own entity in Cambodia, these are the requirements you have to meet. You have to register a company with the Ministry of Commerce, which is quite straightforward in Cambodia. The framework for registering your company is very friendly, and there's no minimum investment requirements, and there's no need to be a Khmer citizen or to work with a local Cambodian investor. So every foreign company and foreign business person can come into Cambodia and set up an entity with the Ministry of Commerce. So this is a very easy to meet step. Then the second step would be to obtain a license from the Ministry of Health. This is a bit more difficult, but still quite straightforward. You need to submit an application form, a biography, your articles of incorporation, and some photos. Then the main issue that is usually difficult for newly established companies is to set up the stock location that is approved by the local authorities. So this is usually the step that may take some more time because you have to meet the technical requirements of the Ministry of Health for being able to store cosmetics. So this is usually the key requirement that foreign investors look at. Once you have a license for a cosmetic import company, it's valid for 2 years, but it can renew it as much as you want. Just every 2 years, you have to resubmit your documents and it will be renewed. There will be a new check of your location, of course, to make sure you still meet the technical requirements. So the process of setting up your own company that is licensed as a cosmetic importer can be a little bit lengthy, but it will give you more control. However, If you want faster market access, we recommend working with a local partner. In that case, we think you should definitely do a due diligence exercise to check if your local partner does possess all the required company licensing, and engage local advice on the contract. So if you have distribution contracts with a local partner, please have them checked out and reviewed for legal compliance. So once you have either engaged a local partner or you've set up your own local entity, you may register your product. As repeated here, every product in Cambodia imported or produced locally must have a notification number. So if you have a cosmetic product you want to enter the market, the notification number is very key. The number is issued by the Ministry of Health's Department of Drugs, Food, Medical Equipment and Cosmetics, which we usually call the DDF, and is obtained by the COMPOR's online registration system. The COMPOR's online registration system was adopted about 2 years ago, together with the World Health Organization. So most of pharmaceutical products, medical devices, but also cosmetics are now registered through this online system, which is quite straightforward and easy to use. So if you are a local company here and you have a cosmetic import license, you may apply to the COMPOR's portal. It's set out here, it's quite straightforward. You need to submit your licensing details, your company address, and you have to appoint a technical staff member to communicate with the Ministry of Health. This means that this staff member has to be able to communicate with the Ministry of Health on the technical aspects of your cosmetic products. So if there's any feedback from the Ministry of Health, this person will be contacted and they need to engage with the Ministry of Health to make sure all the required documents and all the requirement notarizations and all the private information is provided. The cosmetic product notification procedure is quite simple. On the right side, we can see the tabs you need to fill in: manufacturer details, product information, intended use, technical documents, and you end with a declaration and submission of the documents. However, the documents that you need to upload can be quite technical. You need to upload the manufacturer address and licensing. You need to provide the certifications of the manufacturer, such as GMP and ISO. You need to provide information on the ingredients and the product formula, declared intended use, and upload a certificate of free sale. Then lastly, the product information file is part of the submission, and this is usually quite a technical document, although most manufacturers of cosmetics are familiar with the product information file. In Cambodia, the product information file must be in Khmer language, which is the local Cambodian language, English or French, and must include the following 8 points. These following 8 points can be quite technical, and there must be a certificate of quality and certificate of analysis in there, and there must be a safety assessment in there. So this product information file is usually quite a key document and the most technical document in the application. The product information file must be kept with the local entity that imports and distributes the product in Cambodia, because the local health authorities must be able to inspect the product information file if they want to. Once you've registered your product in Cambodia, these are the key labeling requirements you have to look at. Once you get the registration number, you have to show the product registration number or product notification number on the labeling. This is really a key requirement, because if you don't show this number, the authorities can seize your product. The number is quite an easy thing to look out for the authorities. So if you don't have this number, you run a great risk of running into legal trouble. Another key requirement is to list the responsible party for marketing the cosmetic in Cambodia. So most cosmetic products in Cambodia will combine these two key requirements. They'll have the product notification number together with the responsible party, the company name and address of the local entity. For further guidance on how to register, how to label your product, Cambodian law is pretty much silent on it. They don't really give much guidance on what must be on a label. So the DDF, the Cambodian health authorities, ask you to implement the Asean Cosmetic Directive. So the Asean Cosmetic Directive will provide further guidance on the required labeling and sets out some of the requirements that the DDF in Cambodia will look out for as well. So what you need to do in Cambodia is, if you have a product label that is already being sold, a product that's already been sold in a different ASEAN country, you'll probably already meet the required labeling requirements. But specifically for Cambodia, you must make sure to have the product notification number clearly visible and the responsible party clearly visible. Most problems that we've seen with our clients in terms of enforcement against cosmetic products was due to not having the product notification number either clearly on the label or not having it on the label at all. So this is another key requirement. So once you are already on the market, we want to highlight some of the continued compliance requirements. So you're on the market, your product is duly registered. What else do you need to look out for while you're selling your product on the Cambodian market? We'll give some practical considerations and we'll give some advice on how to advertise cosmetics in line with the law. Labeling language is a practical consideration that is quite important in Cambodia. I think many products in Cambodia would be having English labeling because the manufacturer believes it sets them apart as being an import product, and an import product is usually regarded as a product of higher quality. However, having a Khmer language label can help your product be sold to a wider group of consumers because more people will understand your product. Plus, the consumer protection law in Cambodia now requires that all products, regardless if it's a cosmetic or not a cosmetic, has Khmer labeling. At this point in time, the authorities have not yet taken enforcement action or said, okay, every product needs to be fully Khmer, but we expect this will happen in the future. As of now, you can still submit and obtain product registrations for products that are half Khmer or half English or fully English labeled, but we believe this will change in the near future. Another item that may change in the near future is the notification number. The notification number is now very straightforward, just the notification number that you need to show on your labeling, but it may become a QR code. So once it becomes a QR code, you need to be able to have the technical capabilities of printing a QR code on your labeling. And this QR code will be linked to a website that will give registration information, but also information on the product. So you have to be able to print the QR code and prepare an online link that will provide the required information. So we also think in the coming year or two, the notification number will be replaced by this QR code. Another practical consideration is enforcement. We've seen a lot more enforcement actions taking place in Cambodia in regards to cosmetics. And this is due to unlicensed cosmetics, so they're not registered, or the cosmetics were registered, but they did not obtain approval for advertising. So in Cambodia, you need to get permission to advertise your cosmetic products. You have to present to the Ministry of Health what the content of your advertisement will be, and then once they approve it, you're allowed to advertise. However, if you advertise without this approval, they may take enforcement action against you. Another part that is important to consider for advertisement is you're not permitted to exaggerate the quality. So here we see Article 14 on the Sub-Decree on Cosmetic Product Control provides that exaggerating the quality is prohibited. So if you have advertisements that are exaggerating the quality of the cosmetic product, the authorities can seize it, and the authorities have been actively seizing these type of products. Here we see the Ministry of Health issuing press releases regarding unlicensed products or products that are advertising without approval, or they are advertising but they're exaggerating the quality. The Ministry of Health will issue a press release or an official document stating this product is either unregistered, or the advertising is unregistered, or the advertisement is against the law. And they will request the consumers not to buy this product and authorities to take action. On the right side, we see several of these press releases, and they've been released only about a month and a half ago or a month ago. But the website is full of these releases. So it really shows that the Ministry of Health is taking an active stance against unauthorized advertising and unregistered products on the market. So that's why we recommend everyone to follow the law, register your products, and obtain the approval for advertising in Cambodia. This was my presentation today on Cambodia. I think we'll have a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to drop some Q&A questions in the box. And now I'll hand off to my colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. David, for your very excellent presentation. So if our audience have any questions about Cambodia regulations, feel free to ask in the Q&A box. And then after all the speakers' presentation, we will pick some to clarify in the Q&A session or after the webinar by email. Next, let's move to Laos. Mr. Dino, over to you.
Thank you, Hedi. Thank you, David. Good evening or good afternoon to everybody, depending on where you're watching us from. My name is Dino Santaniello. I'm a French-educated legal advisor heading the Office of Tiliki and Gibbons in Laos for more than 5 years now or so. And as David also mentioned it, the office in Laos provides a full range of legal services. So we do regulatory affairs and take care of those issues also as well. But it goes beyond that, since we're also taking care of establishment of and incorporation of companies in different areas of industries. And we just provide a full range of service to help in the entry of the market of our clients, but also during the existence of the company and so on. So today we'll be focusing on about regulatory affair and how to export cosmetics to Laos, but I guess you already know all of that. So I will not linger much longer, and I will introduce the agenda for Laos, which will try to cover more or less what Cambodia has already covered, but the regulation in Laos may be a little bit less exhaustive. And also one thing is to notify to you all, and that would be the first tip of that presentation, is that in Laos, we do not have online filing. So accordingly, all the registration must be done via hard copies, papers. And unfortunately, that was something that definitely missed during that period of pandemic. That would have been great to actually be able to register those or notify those cosmetics via an online system. But the country is affected by the lack of online processing for not only cosmetic regulation, but it goes even for trademark registration and so on. So far, Laos is still testing their online system, but it is not yet available. So hopefully, maybe during the course of 2022, we'll have the possibility to update you and letting you know that Laos has now a cosmetics notification that may be done online. Let's see. So first of all, we'll be speaking about overview of the cosmetics regulations in Laos. Second, import procedures, where I will try to do as good as my colleague David about explaining the different way that you have to import your product, your cosmetic into Laos. So it will be basically it would be about the same as Cambodia, but also the requirement will be different. So there will be two ways. One, you establish your company, import-export company, or you go via you appoint a local distributor. And finally, eventually, we will be speaking about labeling and advertisement of cosmetic products in Laos. So, overview of cosmetics regulations in Laos. So, I think it's good also to mention who is behind those regulations and the drafting even of the law relating to medical product, medicine, but here specifically cosmetics. So there are two governmental agencies who are the main interlocutor for importer, exporter, and distributor in Laos. So that would be the Ministry of Health, but specifically we call, there is the Food and Drug Department. As you can see, it's more or less the same as in Cambodia. And that is the department that will examine, consider the application of importation of cosmetic product into Laos, and that will deliver the registration, the license to actually be able to import the product into Laos, or, and we will see it, authorize the advertising of cosmetic product into Laos. Now about the legal framework, regional legal framework. Again, Laos is also a member of the Asean Directive on Cosmetic, and accordingly, more and more now the officers in Laos from the Food and Drug Department stick to the interpretation of that directive and tend to refer to that as much as possible. But nonetheless, there is still a very local legal framework that is today still used indeed. So first of all, that's the decision on the quality control of cosmetic product. Just a note, decision in Laos is just a legal instrument which is used to clarify laws and regulations. So that's a legal document issued by the ministry itself, while the law will be issued by the National Assembly. So here we have a decision on the quality control of cosmetic products, which provide definition of cosmetic products, but also the the general framework to import those cosmetic products that we will see very soon. Law on drugs and medical products. Actually, it talks not much about cosmetic, but it provides the general mandatory process of registering or notifying the cosmetic product in Laos. Decision on wholesale and retail business. So this one is actually a legal document issued by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, and that frames the licensing requirements for importer and also distributor. So any importer, distributor, or exporter who wants to establish a company in Laos has to abide by the provisions of the decision on wholesale and retail business. As we will see it, this decision provides requirements, but also foreign investment restriction, but we'll see that very soon. Then there is the decision on the management of advertisement for food, drugs, and medical equipment. That's kind of quite self-explanatory, I guess. So this is a decision that we need to refer to when it comes to labeling and advertising product into Laos. And finally, the decision on the establishment of medicine and medical products. This one has to be read in the light of the decision on wholesale and retail business, while the decision on wholesale and retail business will provide a very general legal framework, regulatory framework regarding importer, distributor, and exporter in Laos. The decision on the establishment of medicine and medical product business in Laos will very much focus on those companies and the requirements for companies, specific requirements for companies who wants to import medical product or cosmetics. And we will see there are very specific requirements in this regard, which look like more or less the one in Cambodia. So what is a cosmetic product in Laos? Here I highlight the definition that is referred to by the officer in the country. So first of all, the definition provided in the decision of the quality control of cosmetic products. So a cosmetic product is a substance which is massaged, sprayed, sprinkled, heated, or applied in any manner to any part of the external human body for beauty purpose or to enhance beauty. So this is the essence of the definition of cosmetic product in Laos, according to the decision on the quality control of cosmetic product. And on the other hand, we have also the definition provided in the directive of the ASEAN, where we understand that the cosmetic product is any substance or preparation intended to be placed in contact with the various external parts of the human body, or with the teeth and the mucous membranes of the oral cavity, with a view exclusively or mainly to cleaning them, perfuming them, changing their appearance, and or correcting body odors and or protecting them or keeping them in good condition. So we can see that those two definitions are different in the way that they don't use the same word, but still we can see that the purpose of a cosmetic product according to those two regulations is a beauty purpose. Is not a purpose. The cosmetic product should not have a purpose to treat, cure any injury or any illness also as well. Otherwise, that product will not be defined as a cosmetic product in Laos, but may fall under the definition of a medicine, for instance. So here, this is a type of cosmetic product that will be deemed cosmetic product according to the Lao authorities. The list is not really much exhaustive, and that's the list of type of cosmetic product which is provided directly in the form whenever the importer wants to apply for a cosmetic notification. It is very important to know that, first of all, that list is not exhaustive, and that the Food and Drug Department may also have additional type of product which may be deemed cosmetics. I can raise an example which is very up to date. That's the hand sanitizer. So hand sanitizer is not, if we look into the regulation that I showed you before, there is no mention of hand sanitizer, but very recently there was a notification issued by the Food and Drug Department, which deemed that hand sanitizer will now be deemed as a cosmetic product. So then, as you can see, that list may be moving and may be different from time to time, and the FDD has complete discretion in this regard. So import procedure. So this is where we will be talking about the way that you can import cosmetic into Laos. So first option, establishing a local company. And the second option will be to appoint a locally established distributor authorized to operate in Laos so that you can distribute your cosmetic into the country. So whenever you want to incorporate import-export legal entity in Laos, you need 2 licenses. First of all, the legal entity will have to hold a enterprise registration certificate from the Ministry of Industry and Commerce. And basically, this is the ID card of the company. So on this enterprise registration certificate, you will have information such as the name of the company, the registered address, the name of the director, registered capital, and the number of the enterprise. You have this type of information. In addition to that, when you obtain the enterprise registration certificate, then there would be another step that is required, is to obtain the business operating license. So not for all activities in Laos that business operating license is mandatory, but for some specific activities, an additional license, the business operating license, is mandatory if you want to start to operate in Laos. So this is the case for company, import-export company in Laos. This operating business license is also issued by the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, but here there is the approval from the Ministry of Health that would be necessary. Without this approval, there is no business operating license and there is no import-export legal entity in Laos. So I mentioned just before the decision on wholesale and retail business from 2015. And I mentioned also that there are some foreign investment restriction, and that is a case specifically on the registered capital. So if foreign operator wants to establish an import-export cosmetic company in Laos and want to have full ownership over this company in Laos, then there is a need to invest in the registered capital at least $2.1 million. Otherwise, you may have you must actually have a Lao partner coming into the registered capital, and you will have to, you cannot have the full ownership over the company. And so that's one of the main requirements. But the good thing is that it is possible to have full ownership of the company, even if the requirement is pretty high. This was not the case before 2015. So in a sense, we can see that Laos is trying to liberalize its market more and more. Also, I mentioned before that in addition to the decision on the wholesale and retail business in Laos, there is also the decision on the establishment of medicine and medical product business. And this is where we will have some more technical requirements. And so any company operator who wants to establish a import-export cosmetic company in Laos will have to show that there was no professional misconduct, was not convicted of narcotic trading. So this is for instance, the representative of the shareholder or even the director of the company. They must also substantiate that the representative of the shareholder or the director is in good health, no mental disorder, and so on. Have a warehouse which meets with standard requirements. So those standard requirements, that's the good warehouse practice. So we can mention that the storeroom should be at least 6 by 12 meters, for instance, that you have a ventilation system, cooling system, and temperature system, and so on, just to ensure that the goods and the cosmetics will be properly stored within the premises of the warehouse. But I think, one of the obstacles of the requirement for foreign shareholder, but even for local company, local operator, is to find a Lao pharmacist. So you must have in your payroll, so meaning that you cannot have just an advisor as a Lao pharmacist in the company, but this Lao pharmacist must be on the payroll of the company and have at least 5 years of experience. It must be certified by the Lao Ministry of Health. Otherwise, again, it's not possible to establish an import-export cosmetic company. So why is it difficult? Because in Laos, if you are a little bit familiar with the market, there is a lack of qualified pharmacists, but even qualified human resources, and it seems that it's more and more difficult to find a Lao pharmacist. So hopefully in the near future there will be more, but so far we understand that from our clients that that's not something very easy to find. Then you can also appoint a local distributor. So the appointment of the local distributor will be made at the time that the cosmetic product must be notified with the Food and Drug Department. So there will be a form in this regard, in addition to providing also the contract, the distribution agreement between you and the local, the manufacturer and the local distributor. In this regard also, it's important to note that there is no specific regulation relating to the content of the distribution agreement between you and the local distributor. This will fall under the common regulation of the law and contract of the civil code in Laos. One thing that is very important, and same as in Cambodia, it's very important to have that local, distribution agreement to be localized. We have many clients having some kind of template, and at first, they may want to just apply the template to the Lao marketplace, but that there are really much very local specificities that must be addressed in the distribution agreement. So this is why, again, please have your distribution agreement checked by a local advisor accordingly. For the cosmetic notification process, is pretty straightforward. So the cosmetic notification process must be done by the local importer or distributor or the manufacturer if the manufacturer is locally established. And the application must be done via the Food and Drug Department of the Ministry of Health. So basically there are 2 steps. The first step would be to request the importation of a cosmetic sample. So here there will be the necessity to provide a letter of appointment, labeling and marketing materials, so as well of the cosmetic, but also sample. Once that first step has been approved and there is approval from the Food and Drug Department in this regard, there will be the second step, where we will have all those documentation regarding to free sale certificate, certificate of analysis, GMP, and also undesirable health effect summary. So all in all, the process takes about 3 to 6 months, according to what we heard from our client, and the cosmetic notification license is valid for a period of 2 years, which can be renewed all the time. Also, things which can be done is a manufacturer or the exporter can also change during the course of the notification, change the local distributor. That must be notified to the Food and Drug Department, and it is possible then to change the local distributor during the process of the distribution of the cosmetic in Laos. So briefly, pros of each option, I would say there is no bad option. It really depends on what you want to do and how you see the Lao market. Is it a very a big market for you? What is the volume of sale you expect? But I can stress the exact same pros for each option as in Cambodia. So first of all, for the locally established importer, obviously you do not need to go through the hassle of licensing requirements, incorporation process of your company in Laos, and you can expand your market, the countries where you can distribute your product in a faster way and potentially at less cost. And also it's very important in those markets where I would say the rule of law is not very solid as yet, to rely on importer familiar of the local context and the bureaucracy, which plays a very important role in the business climate in Laos. Now, what we have seen also as well is those pros for establishing a local company. So indeed, better control over the chain of supply. And you can also guarantee, I know it's very important for many of our clients, multinational companies have often those internal rules, very strict anti-corruption policy or ESG policies also as well. And this is where maybe you definitely have a better control over it as compared to when you rely on a local importer. And also what we witnessed during that pandemic period is the good thing to have your own company distributing the product is you can adjust to a new situation. So let's say now we have a pandemic, we cannot open businesses, we cannot sell through physical shops. Then you need to adjust the way you distribute your product, and you may need to actually rely on an online retail practice, which may not be something that your local importer, local distributor can do. And this is where we felt like it's very important to take this into consideration. And the last pros, I would say, is also to avoid any dispute with a local distributor, because we do have laws, we do have regulation. It tends to be better enforced over the course of the year, but still enforcement may be an issue also in Laos in this regard. So you may also avoid some issues with your local distributor whenever those happen. So lastly, I will try to be brief, advertising authorization. So same as the notification, or same as before you market your product into Laos, you need to notify the product with the Food and Drug Department. It's exactly the same for advertising authorization. So here again, the person submitting the application to obtain the authorization is still the importer or the distributor in Laos. The issuer is still the Food and Drug Department. The interesting thing is that depending on the type of medium you want to use, the requirements may be different, and also the approval process may be a little bit different. What we can see is also that the duration of that approval will be different depending on whether you want to advertise through a meeting, exhibition, public event, e-media, or through hard copy like printing, newspaper, and so on. So anyway, each time you must keep in mind that the content must be approved by the Food and Drug Department. And I also highlighted on the right-hand side of the slide some tips also as well to be very careful about. The process to obtain the authorization to advertise the product is pretty straightforward in Laos, 1 week to 1 month to obtain the advertising authorization. That may be another story for medicine, but for cosmetic products, it's pretty straightforward. And finally, libeling requirements. So there are two, I would say, laws, regulation to take into account in this regard. First of all, the decision on the quality control of cosmetic product. So here on the labeling, you must have the name of the cosmetic, name and amount of chemical that are the main ingredient of the product, the registration number issued by the manufacturing country, name on the manufacturer, address, lot, manufacturing date and expiry date of the product, instruction for use, or warning safety notice also, and the size of the packaging. These requirements must be read in the light of the law on consumer protection, which specifically provide that all labeling must be made in Lao language. So it does not mean that Lao language cannot coexist with another language, but the Lao language must be here and must be also prominent. So this is a requirement that is very important to take into account, because at the time where you want to take a legal action against, let's say, counterfeit, if the operator the cosmetic do not have those labeling in Lao language, it may be that the local authorities may be reluctant to actually enforce any legal action against any infringer of your intellectual property right. We've seen that issue, and then our client had to adapt and to have the labeling in Lao language. Usually what can be done though is that the local distributor may affix a sticker on the product and to make it in Lao language. So you do not have maybe to redo the whole packaging of the product. Just a sticker, a firm sticker sticked on the cosmetic would be fine. So I understand that the Q&A session may come at the very end of the webinar. I would be happy to answer your question. In the meantime, I will definitely have a look at the Q&A box and see what your questions are. Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dino, for your deep insights for Laos cosmetic regulations. Next, we move to the Myanmar session. I'll hand over to Ms. Yuradi and Ms. A.
Hello, everyone. Welcome you to our presentation for the Myanmar. Let me erase. Okay. For today, we will, as my colleague in Cambodia and Laos already mentions, we will present on about how to export cosmetic to Myanmar. Today, my name is Yuvadi, and I have an experience in Myanmar about nearly 9 years that I work with about Myanmar law and regulation in Myanmar. And also today I have my colleague as well. Hello, Etusa. Please introduce yourselves.
Yes, thank you, Kunyudi. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Etusa Lai. I am an associate from Thailand Gibbons, Myanmar. I am working with Thailand Gibbons around 4 and 5 years. And my main experience is handling for corporate and regulatory affairs in Myanmar.
Thank you, Etusa. Okay, we will start our presentation for today. Okay, today our content that will outline that we will present for you the similar with other country about the overview of the cosmetic regulation in Myanmar and the import procedure in Myanmar. And also Myanmar is now already start for e-filing system for cosmetic product as well. And also the last one is about labeling and advertising of cosmetic products. For myself, I will present on the overview of cosmetic and also the import procedures in Myanmar, and my colleagues Etusa will present about e-filing system and labeling and advertising cosmetic product in Myanmar. I think this is the regional legal framework on cosmetics exportation. I think is the same with Laos and Cambodia, that we are based on the ASEAN Cosmetic Associations, and we also have some regulation based on ASEAN Harmonized Cosmetic Regulations. Myanmar was signed this agreement in 2003, and also have some issue about regulation for cosmetic that based on the ASEAN countries. The department that have the review and approve for the procedure of the cosmetic is the Ministry of Health, and also Department of the Food and Drug Administration of Myanmar will take care about approve and issue some recommendation for the cosmetic in Myanmar. And also about the regulation and frameworks. Yes, Myanmar is followed ASEAN Cosmetic Directive is mainly, this is the one that I think is can comply with other ASEAN country as well. This is the definition of cosmetic product in Myanmar. It is interesting that about the definition of the cosmetic product in Myanmar was issued in has issued in 1972. The meaning is interesting because it just only any substance which is not necessary to apply, but which is used to enhance the natural beauty and elegance. This one is under the section of 2F of Myanmar Public Health Law in 1972. However, for the detail of the cosmetic products, this is the same with other countries, Laos and Cambodia. We are based on ASEAN Cosmetic Directive. That's why the definition are the same. Okay, the product or cosmetic product under the Myanmar is actually we based on ASEAN Cosmetic Directive that have the 19 categories. For the Myanmar, they comply based on ASEAN Cosmetic Directive, but they have one extra category about others. This is to allow for Ministry of Health to specific cosmetic product from time to time as deemed necessary. Sometimes it's something like in the future and then in the near futures or during like pandemic situation, they may have some product that may under this category. The FDA of Myanmar can have the considerations to categorize this type of product under these others. That's why they have one extra category that add on ASEAN Cosmetic Directive. For the importation of the cosmetic to Myanmar, this is I think it's very similar to Laos, as my colleague already mentions. However, Myanmar also issues some retail and wholesale regulation for the foreign company that can establish in Myanmar. That's why for the import cosmetic product into Myanmar, they have two ways. One is establish company under the Notification 25/2018. This is issued under the Ministry of Commerce. And also the second one is appoint a local distributors who has an exporter-importer certificate registration. This is the name of the certificate. Only it doesn't mean they can import or export. It will depend on the detail that you will request from the Ministry of Commerce, which type of product that you want to import or export. This is only about the import cosmetic, not including about if you establish manufacturing in Myanmar. This is another category or another types that may have another detail. For us, this presentation will focus on the imports cosmetic product into Myanmar. Okay, to make that clear by the diagram, we just set up the two types, as I already mentioned. The first one, you need to consider what type of the company that you will establish or you will select in Myanmar. If you would like to establish the company which 100% owned by foreigner to take a control of this company, you can do under the Notification 25/2018. For the detail, I will show what is the requirement or minimum requirement of this type of company for your consideration. And the second one is, I think this is the international standard to appoint the local in case you are not foreign, you are not meet under the special regulation, or you are not foreign company. In case you are not established under the Notification 25/2018, or you are not the foreign company, you can appoint the local distributors. This is the one of the detail of the company for the option one that I mentioned, that the company need to be established the company by filing the online to the Directorate of Investment and Company Administration that we are known as the DICA. And then after that, you need to apply for importer-exporter certificate registration with the Ministry of Commerce to eligible for import or export the good and product or the cosmetics. And you have right to have the import or export the product or cosmetic into Myanmar. you need to have you need to consider another license that we call about import license. This import license used to be get exempt for the cosmetic products, and this cosmetic product was exempt since 2013. That not require any recommendation or import license when they import the product into Myanmar. However, in last month, the Ministry of Commerce also issued the new instruction that we call new letters, number 18, 2021, informed that the cosmetic product will require an import license. This will be effective from 1st of January 2022. Therefore, if you already import the product into Myanmar, in the purest time, you may not require to request or import license. However, from the 1st of January, you need to be ready, and you need to consider yourself if you already established the company in Myanmar, or you already have the local distributor. You need to contact with the local distributor to have prepare for the requirement of the import license. This is the one. If not, you may have some issue at the custom department because you unable to show about import license. This is the one that the new requirement from Ministry of Commerce. For the company that would like to establish under the wholesale and retail or under the notification to 2018. For the retail, if you want to establish a retail company and have the 100% owned by foreigners or at least 80% owned share by foreigners, for the retail, you need the minimum or initial capital or requirement is about $3 million. And for wholesale, it's $5 million. However, if you have the joint ventures by the local at 20% or more, the initial capital that may require will be decreased. For the retail, it's about 700,000, and for wholesale is 200,000. What is the difference between the retail and wholesale? Retail is based on the notification that have the definition that the retail is direct sale to your customer or very small volume. For the wholesale this is the one that the product that you will sell to manufacturers or retailers. This is one of the definitions. For the injection of the initial capital or initial money that we need to inject, they have 3 years for you to consider for the injection. Is first year is 50%, second year is 30%, and the third year 20% of the amount that mentioned in the tables. This is type of the company. In case you consider in option 2, that is the many company running their operation by this option 2. I think it's for a long time, and also many companies use these options. The most important of this option by appointing the local company is the contract, distributorship agreement. This is the one that you may need to have as the part of the appoint of the local distributors. This agreement will be regulated by Contract Act 1972. And the important thing that's in this agreement, you need to include about the contract obligations, choice of law, confidential agreements about intellectual properties, and also about the ingredients. This is non-disclosure agreements, and important that about non-objections. In case in the future, you may consider that you may want to appoint other distributors in other area, or you want to terminate that local distributor and change to another one, this non-objection letter will be required by FDA when you want to change the local distributors. That's why this is the important key for you. If you want to appoint the local distributors, the non-objection letter should be provided since the beginning. This is the procedure for import the cosmetic product, as we already mentioned about. If the application import or be the local distributors, they need to be registered a cosmetic product at the FDA. This is under the order that I mentioned. In case the requirement form must be provided to FDA for their considerations. If any importers, even the local importers or local distributor, sell the cosmetic without a permission or import the product with illegals, the Ministry of Commerce or Customs Department can take actions. Even the FDA as well can take the actions based on the Export and Import Law 2012 and also Consumer Protection Law to take action for non-licensed or non-registered product into Myanmar. Okay, this is the e-filing system. Etusa will be continue for her presentations.
Hi, thank you, Konyuwati. Let me present a presentation for e-filing system of cosmetic in Myanmar. FDA Myanmar is the authority to issue cosmetic notification for the imported cosmetic into Myanmar. In the previous year, they practiced for manual filing system, but in the early of 2021, they started for e-submission system, and it is very comfortable to use and very easy to evaluate by the FDA Myanmar. Next slide, please. Together with e-filing system, we would like to present about the required documents for notification of cosmetic products. Here, the requirements are similar with Laos and Cambodia, but in Myanmar, there may be choice for the GMB, ISO, or Free Sale certificate. Only one of these certificates is required. We don't need to insert these 3 certificates in the application. But for the others, to the Myanmar FDA, the list of ingredients of the cosmetic must submit to the application. Because FDA Myanmar would like to check if there are any restricted ingredients that include in the cosmetic products. It is strictly prohibited, including restricted ingredients. The restricted ingredients is to check under the Asean Cosmetic Directive ACD. And further to this requirement, the applications, the FDA Myanmar will check the application in accordance with the guideline of the notification of cosmetic product application that was issued in 2009. Next slide, please. Hello, next slide, please. Yes, this is here in the right side. You can see the sample of the cosmetic notification certificate that was issued by the Myanmar FDA via the e-submission system. So the certificate will be issued in the form of soft copy as usual in the e-submission system. Other certificates for the cosmetics that can cover for the registration is 4 types, but currently Myanmar FDA is only practicing to issue for the acknowledgement of cosmetic notification, and another one is for certificate of cosmetic manufacturer, depending on whether the product is imported or locally manufactured. For these 2 certificates, the manufacturer certificate is valid for 3 years and renewable, and acknowledgement of cosmetic notification is valid for 2 years and is also renewable. Next slide, please. So let me continue about the labeling and advertising of cosmetics in Myanmar. Cosmetic labeling is to comply with the cosmetic order from Ministry of Health, that is order number 1, 2010. The main key of the labeling is to describe the name of the cosmetic product, full ingredient list, the manufacturer date and expiry date. And it must include registration number of the country of origin. The registration number means the FDA registration number from the country of origin. And another one is the cosmetic product must include a duration for use, how to storage, if any restricted ingredient is including a sum of percentage, it must include special precautions and things to avoid using this cosmetic. And another point is the main important point, we can also say the label must be in Myanmar language or English, or can input in both language. If the cosmetic product includes other Thai language or Chinese language, the product must attach Myanmar translation or English translation. Currently, Myanmar FDA is accepting the sticker label over affixing on the product in case of translating into Myanmar or English. Yes, next slide, please. Here, another part is for advertisement of cosmetic products. The product, the registered product must comply with the order 1, 2010 of Ministry of Health when advertising in the market. And the product are prohibited to advertise in the market that mention the product is including medicine and that can use for treatment of disease. It is strictly prohibited. But for the approval of advertisement, it is not required to apply prior approval from FDA Myanmar. It can freely advertise in the market, but to comply with the order number 1. And another thing is the effectiveness. The advertisement must be correct and true for its effectiveness, not include any exceeding information or misunderstandable information to the consumers. Because Myanmar Consumer Protection will check at any time of the products in the market that is compliant with the MOH order and consumer protections instructions from time to time. Next slide, please. Another important thing for cosmetic import in Myanmar is a Declaration of Trademark. Because registered trademark and registered trademark cosmetic with registered trademark can only import into Myanmar because the copy of the trademark declaration or registration must be filed with FDA Myanmar for their evaluation. So it is necessary to make sure your cosmetic product that intend to import in Myanmar must have a declaration of trademark from the trademark owner or the manufacturer. Next slide, please. So here is the end of our presentation. I hope some of the attendees may have some questions, and we are available to give response for your questions. Thank you all.